And hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again with another YouTube reading guide series. Today is a 10th video, that's video 10, walking through the Top Cow Artifactiverse, which you might call the Witchblade universe or the Artifact universe or the Darkness universe. So this reading guide was created by reading 902 single issues. I put all that together in terms of making a reading map, which is available to download and I'm sharing with you. I am using a couple of technical terms or jargon terms that I tend to use in all my videos, like volume with a big or small v, or I refer to different types of comic readers. But this is really necessary in terms of understanding and be able to talk through comics and comic series and comic lines in the kind of depth that I do. So hopefully you find it useful. If it's a bit overwhelming, there is a link to the introduction video, video 0, in the description below. Anyway, with no further ado, here, ladies and gentlemen, is the Artifactiverse as a reading map. This is zoomed out quite far, 7% size, as you can see, but it's interesting to see there's all this, and we've covered so much of it. We covered the blue era, which was the before the Rise era. We've covered the yellow era, which was the Origins era, the pink era, which is the Artifacts era, and even the grey era here, which was the Rebirth era from last time. Remember, all these names are my own names for them, and it's just kind of a bit of artistic license, so that these aren't official titles by any means. Now, today, we're going to go here into this green area, what I call the after the fall era. And as you can see, this is now extremely simple. It's getting much more simple and straightforward than it was back in the yellow era here, where it was mega complicated. But having said that, there are quite a few confusing bits and pieces here, so it's not actually as straightforward as you might think, and it is well worth having a look to follow this guide and just to follow it along, okay? So, the After the Fall era, whilst it seems pretty straightforward, I'll talk you through it now. And before we start, we need to really jump in right here. Now, I guess I should preface by saying this. There's a comment I made in one of my earliest videos, video 0, which was the introduction, where I said that whilst the Witchblade was the heart of the Top Cow Artifactiverse, and the darkness was his conflicted soul, the mind of the whole Artifactiverse was actually the character Aphrodite Nine. This may have seemed an odd throwaway comment, especially as it referred to really a peripheral side character, but I stand by it. And this final era of the entire Top Cow Artifactiverse is the reason for that. So hopefully you've been following along and you'll find that you agree. So who is Aphrodite Nine? Well, let's look here right at the top. Aphrodite Nine actually debuted in the comic Aphrodite Nine Volume 1, as volume with a big V, in 2003, drawn by David Finch and written by David Wohl. At the time, this was classic early 90s stuff. It was a bombastic series, 4 issues of great artwork, overcomplicated storytelling, and lots of guns. It doesn't really fit in anywhere in the previous eras that we've discussed, and to be honest, it was only much later, in the Artifact era, that Ron Mars decided to bring the character Aphrodite 9 into the main universe along with Hunter Killer, Witchblade, and the others. This worked incredibly well, and so it's definitely worth knowing who she is, but there's no need to read the original out of continuity miniseries in order to understand the character. If you've read the other issues that we've talked about until now, this particular collection, this volume 1, volume with a big V, this 4-issue miniseries isn't really necessary reading, and that's why I've actually coloured in the circle that it sits in as slightly grey. Having said that, if you are going to read it, this is the time. Consider this a prelude before getting into the After the Fall era properly. And to be honest, I love it. I think it's really fun. If you're a fan of 90s comics, this will be right up your street. So anyway, after reading that, what you then need to get into is this. This is Aphrodite 9, but it's a volume with a big V2. And it's called Aphrodite 9 Rebirth. Now, even though it's called Aphrodite 9 Rebirth, it is not, and this is very critical to remember, guys, it is not part of the Rebirth era that we talked about up here in the grey era. Okay, it's easy to think that's the case, but it is not. Aphrodite 9 Rebirth is set about 900 years. This isn't a spoiler, trust me, but it's set 900 years after all the events we've gone through so far. So it's really important that you're conscious that that Rebirth subtitle is a misnomer. So what we're looking at here is collection 1, or volume with a small v1, as you might want to think about it. This collects issues 1 to 5, and that continues on to this, which is collection 2, which collects issues 6 to 11, and a one-shot called Aphrodite 9, The Hidden Files. Now, this is really important. It is followed by, but does not collect, this, which is a one-shot called Aphrodite 9, Cyberforce. I'll show you the cover of it here. Okay, This final issue, the one-shot, is one of the most key issues in the entire Artifactiverse, and yet somehow remains uncollected in the trade paperbacks. In this one issue, it ties together the story of Aphrodite Nine, Cyberforce, the Witchblade, the Darkness, in one magnificent, shocking way. This, by the way, is the reason this video series started with the Before the Rise section all about Cyberforce. It's key to understand them, to understand what's happening in the After the Fall era. And make no mistake, this issue here, this represents the grand finale of the Artifactiverse. To that end, if you want to collect this in the best possible format, I would recommend this. This is a beautiful, oversized hardcover that collects the original 2003 miniseries, as well as the full series of Volume with a Big V2. As well as that, it includes the amazing Aphrodite Nine Cyberforce one-shot right at the end, which is uncollected elsewhere. So this is really the definitive way to read this part of the After the Fall era. It is, however, massively out of print and is a major whale. Let's go back to our map here. So this is what we're looking at, Aphrodite 9 Cyberforce. If we zoom out a little bit, we'll see that that hardcover we were just looking at contains all four of these circles. So the original Aphrodite 9 series from 2003, and then both collections for the Rebirth relaunch for After the Fall. And then the one-shot Aphrodite 9 Cyberforce. All right, moving on. This is then followed by a series called Ninth Generation, which is a little bit tricky if you're searching for it on something like Comixology because it doesn't start with an A. This starts way further down alphabetically speaking. So Ninth Generation has collection 1 here, which contains issues 1 to 3, a one-shot called Hidden Files, and then issue 4. What many people forget or don't realize is that between what we have on the left here, which is Ninth Generation Collection 1, and then on the right, Ninth Generation Collection 2, there are a series of Ninth Generation one-shots. These one-shots are called Athena 9, with this cover, Artemis 9, with this cover, Apollo 9, with this cover, Poseidon 9, with this cover. And then, back to the map, we have Volume 2 here, which collects issues 5 to 8. Now that is the reading order I've given you of the one-shots and the issues in this volume. I hope that's clear, everybody. The Ninth Generation is not available in hardcovers, be they oversized or normal size, so that's a little bit annoying. Having said that, as far as I'm concerned, for my money, the storyline starts to fall off a little bit there, so I wouldn't worry too much about the collecting format, unless, of course, you're a completionist. Now, and only now, after and only after the events of Ninth Generation, should you then move on to Cyberforce 2018, which can be seen here. This is collected in 3 separate volumes, as you can see here. There we are, just underneath Ninth Generation Volume 2. And keep in mind that the events here only make sense after reading Aphrodite, and Aphrodite only makes sense once you're familiar with the rest of the Artifactiverse. Do you see how it's all linked now? So let's have a look at these. So what we have here is Cyberforce Collection 1. Notice that all these collections, there we are, stabilized there. All these collections have the subtitle Awakening, and all of them are collected physically. So the volume you can see here with this cover is collection 1 that collects issues 1 to 4. Volume with a small V2 or collection 2 collects issues 5 to 8. And then the final trade paperback collection with this cover collects issues 9 to 11. And then also the Aphrodite 9 Aries one-shot you can see here, and the Aries 9 Darkness one-shot you can see here. If we look back at the map, we'll see that this last volume is actually a little bit weird. So whilst some places say it only collects issues 9 to 11, other places say it collects issues 9 to 12, even though there is no issue 12, and so on. To be honest, I don't know what's in the physical trades, so please sound off in the comments if you have read them and you can confirm that for me. Okay. Wow. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. With the end of that, we have done the entirety of the Top Cow Artifactiverse. Now, don't forget, after this very final volume here, this Cyberforce Collection 3 from the 2018 series with that particular cover, remember, Top Cow at this point, after releasing that, then decided in their infinite wisdom to go out and release these, which are part of this series. I mentioned it in the last video. I know it's weird. I know it's confusing. God knows why they did it. But if you were following along with these videos, you should have already been aware of that. Right. And that is everything. Next time, in our last and final video, we are going to cover the last part of the map, which is the reboot era. And also we'll talk about some of the final out of continuity series, as well as the future of the Top Cow universe and the Artifactiverse as well. As always, this map is available on my website for you to download free of charge. If you want to download it or print it out to follow along, please do so. It will really help because we're talking about 902 single issues here. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter, where I tend to post a one-tweet daily review, whatever I've read, which is a great way to follow along and interact with the channel. If you want to support the channel, it's easy. Head over to Amazon and pick up the first volume of my novel. It's a prose superhero novel, all words, no pictures, and it's about a future dystopia where superhumans are a reality. If you want to give it a try, it's free on Kindle Unlimited. The books themselves cost less than $1 if you buy them on Kindle, and you can always leave a review of them at Amazon. If you want to read a free excerpt of the first book, the first chapter in its entirety is found on the same website as this reading map, which is nogodsorkings.com. The link to that is in the description below. Until next time, Internet, stay classy.